Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Joni Young and I'm an acrylic artist instructor. If you're new here, thanks so much for joining and don't forget to hit that subscribe. So today I'm going to be showing you step by step how to paint this fun fantasy piece, very magical. I can't wait to show you guys. I'm breaking it down into very easy and simple to follow instructions and steps for you guys. I'm going to go through all the colors in the description box below and I hope you enjoy watching this one and that you'll paint along with me. So if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and get started. Working on a 16 by 20 canvas today, and I'm going to start by painting the sky. I'm going to use soft lemon yellow with a little bit of white, and I'm just using any old large blending brush and just pulling back and forth, coming in with a little bit of my neon red now, as well as a little bit of white and any yellow that's left in my brush. I want to blend all of these colors up and have one kind of just blending into one another. I'm going to add a little bit more of my neon red now, creating soft little scoops and crisscrossing gently with my brush. Now I'm going to add some turquoise with some white. Softly blend that in. You can create any pattern you want. This is just the background, and then we're going to be building up some peaks for some clouds. So you can see it's blending in a little bit to the yellow. You just want to create a nice soft pastel sky. You can use any pastel colors that you want. These are just a few of my favorites. And I've got some light, excuse me, I've got some light blue violet, and I'm also going to be using some phthalo blue. If you don't have light blue violet, you can just take some cobalt blue or ultramarine blue and mix it up with white and you'll get the same color. So there's more of the phthalo blue down here on the left corner at the bottom. So I'm going to start to create a few more scoops now. I'm going to add more white. Be a little bit easier if I come over to this side now, just for filming purposes. So coming in from the side here, I'm going to just softly blend with a Filbert brush. You can use any Filbert brush that you want, any size. I'm taking white and I'm going to do some half circles and little puffy clouds, very, very softly, not a whole lot of detail. Now the paint is still wet underneath, and this works really well for creating some shadow and some nice contrast into that red area there. So I've got little bits of my turquoise and my blue with white. I'm going to get a whole bunch of water on my brush each time I do this. I'm just pushing and pinching off water and the leftover paint in my brush to create some drips. I often like to do this in my fantasy paintings. I think it looks pretty and it's just part of the creative process for me. Those will eventually be some vines. Now I've got a very large stipple brush here. Any stipple brush or mop brush will work. You don't have to have this specific one. And sorry guys, I can no longer find this one. I bought it at Michael's years ago. It doesn't have a name on it. I don't know the manufacturer or the company. I'm just taking some burnt sienna and some black and some blue, and now I've got some sap green as well, and I'm just tapping, adding some yellow, blending in with that green. So make a nice little grassy area here, and I just created a little circle or an oval there for a little portal, one of my magical little worlds. You can use a Filbert brush too, if you don't have a mop brush or a stipple brush like that. I'm pulling down with a round brush. You can also use a liner brush and just creating some little braided twisted vines wrapping around the little frame or entry of this portal, and I'm using a little bit of light blue violet, and it's mixing in, pulling the other colors that are already there. Now I'm going to add some little branches, so I'm just going to pull and flick little tiny branches. Maybe have some vines or some moss hanging, so just pull and flick lightly. Now all of the paint needs to be wet in order for you to be able to pull and flick and blend all these colors around. If you want a little tip on keeping your paint from drying out quickly, have a spray bottle on hand and just lightly or finely mist your paint or your canvas. Also, I like to keep my studio and workspace cool, so I make sure I have an air conditioner for the summertime, and a nice way to store your paints so that they don't dry out and you don't waste them. If any leftover paint, just cover it in tin foil or saran wrap and put it in the fridge. So I'm adding some more of my burnt sienna and maybe some black. Any dark color will work, and just pulling and flicking down on the bottom. I've got a really small mop brush now, and I'm taking some of my green. I've got a few different greens here. I've got my sap green. You can also use hooker's green. I've got lemon yellow, and I've got some chartreuse green or grass green. So you can play around with your greens to create different tones for all your foliage that you want to have in your trees. Then I'll tap a little bit here on the edge before I add some waterfalls. I wanted to have this one on an angle, this little world. All the other ones I've done are pretty straight up and down, and I thought it might look neat to change the perspective of this and the angle of it. So it's kind of sloped, and I thought it was kind of neat, but you guys can make yours straight up and down if you want. It's really interesting though to change the direction or the angle of these floating worlds when they're in the sky. It kind of creates a interesting illusion, I think. So I'm just using my little mop brush again with my light blue violet, and I'm going to create tiny little waterfalls there in the background and then some here in the foreground. So I think I'm going to switch over to a flat brush. There's a few different brushes that you can use for creating waterfalls, such as a Filbert flat and a fan. And I've got a lot of videos in my fantasy playlist and acrylic painting for beginners, so be sure to check out my playlist, guys. I paint a lot of waterfalls, and you'll learn a lot from watching those. So now I'm over to a fan brush. Each brush you use for a waterfall will make your waterfall slightly different. That's why I like to change it up. I don't want all my waterfalls to look the same. And I'm going to come around the edge now with a little Filbert brush and make this a little bit darker, deepening that shadow and contrast. Just tapping lightly. I want this to look a little bit twisted and braided. So I'm going to go out and then in and over a little bit. I'm going to create some little swirly vines. You can use a small round brush or a liner brush. I find a liner brush works really well, especially for a small area like this. So I'll just be adding some more branches and little trees in here. And be creative, guys. Add whatever you want. You can paint some flowers in yours. You can even do like some roses kind of growing in around the outside frame of your portal. And you could even add like a little cabin. Sometimes I have little cabins or cottages that I sneak in there that you can barely see at first glance. You kind of have to look around to find them. So I'm just going to add a little bit more around the edge here, some more swirls. And I want to make them stand out a little bit, right, because it's so dark around that edge, so I'm adding a little bit of my green and a little bit of white. I'm going to swirl them all the way up. And then pull out along the edge here, adding some more highlights. I just want to make this a little bit flatter looking and a little bit wider. I want to have it look like there's some roots, like tree roots, down here at the bottom. So I'm just pulling some of my dark colors and then turning some of them into those curly vines and swirls. And this painting was so much fun to create, and I want to really thank Carly and Martina for asking me to do a collaboration with them. This is the longer version. The shorter version, it was just under a minute time lapse, was to their beautiful song Divine Way. You guys might have seen that on my channel a little while ago. I'll leave the link in the bottom the description area of this video, and then you guys can have a look at that. It's very sped up, but you have to hear their voices. They're so talented. I'm just creating a staircase here, of course. You guys know I love my staircases, so making the stairs little lines. It's very easy. You just make little lines when you want it to be further away, and then make them longer and wider towards us in the foreground to create that perspective. I'm just using my dark colors for that, highlighting with white and yellow, and then coming in with a mop brush, creating tiny little bits of foliage on either side of the staircase. They're going to be larger. I guess I'm going to push harder towards the foreground, and then you're going to let off on the brush when you want them to be smaller, and then highlight with yellow and white or any light green. You can incorporate some flowers. That would have looked really pretty to add some flowers, maybe pink and red here along the side. Magenta would look really nice too. Now what I end up doing is making it look softer and faded and kind of blurry. I wanted it to look like you couldn't see where those stairs stopped or started. I wanted it to be one with the clouds and kind of just disappear into it, giving it more of that up in the sky look. So I'm just gonna wipe and blend off some of this paint very lightly. And by doing this, I'm going to be exposing some more color underneath, and it ends up looking really pretty. There's some neon red that I use with a bit of white, and that's probably my favorite part when that happens. I just was so excited. I love that. Just what it brought it all together for me. I don't know about you guys, but I think what leads me the most, I'm really led by color for my artwork and creating. If it weren't for color, I don't know if I'd be happy painting. Like I just need to have color. I couldn't be someone who works only like as a sketch artist or just using black and white. I really, really need color to express myself. Especially the neon colors. I just find them so satisfying to use. So much fun. So I'm coming in with some more scoops to create little peaks and make these look more like clouds. Using some white. You can tint it with any color you want so that it's not just straight white if you want to add a little bit more fun and whimsy to your paintings. You can tint it with yellow or pink or orange. So yeah, now it looks like those stairs are kind of nestled in between the clouds. I'm just adding a little bit of shadow along the edge there, building up some more of the foliage, and then I'm going to pull and flick and make it look kind of swirly there along the edge. And I added a highlight with my yellow again and white. I'm going to do the same thing down here. I want to create some swirls. I love to add swirls and just lots of vines and curvy, flowy type of things in my paintings. It's just kind of my thing to do, and they're fun to create, and I think it really adds to the whimsy in paintings. Just adding some more light back there at the base of those first set of waterfalls. Then I'm going to soften this up at the top, creating more of a cloud effect. I'm going to tap in a little bit of my blue and my neon red. And this is when I start to add that pink, and I just love the way it looks. And when I say pink, I mean neon red with white. And I'm just softening again with a dry, clean mop brush. And I've got a lot of different mop brushes on hand, and I highly recommend that. Once you wash your mop brushes out, that nice shape will be gone until they're dry, and they take a long time to dry. I want to add a few little stars in here, so I'm using a liner brush, titanium white. I'm doing a little dot, and then I'm pulling and flicking up and down, and then you can do like a cross and then an X if you aren't really sure where to add your little lines, but just want to do very soft, light little flicks. And then make sure the center of your stars are the brightest, so sometimes I go over them at the end and just add a little bit more white. I'm going to take my pinky with a little bit of white and just dab right here for very soft sun. Has a glowing look to it. It's just really, really subtle, and I think it adds to the painting. Just adding a few more little stars, little orbs here, dabbing a bit of white, and then softening. I think it looks pretty just kind of going and floating up those stairs. So this painting is just about done. I'm going to add a few finishing touches here on the side, a few more little half circles with a liner brush and some white, creating some more little cloud effects going on down there at the bottom. A few more little highlights here on some of these swirls. And then I'm actually gonna take off some of the paint at the top here, so I'm just gently scrubbing off with a little bit of water, damp brush, and I'm gonna create a little circle right here, another little portal above that portal. And if you can't do this because your paint is still wet, you can easily just paint over, creating a circle there with the background color. You could use the yellow, the neon red, and the white just to try and match that. And then I'm gonna just do a little contrast around the outside of it, some dark colors that I've got, my black and my burnt sienna, maybe a bit of red and green, and add a few little bits of color down in here. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I have extra footage over for my Patreons. I take you guys for a little tour of my studio and talk about my paintings. So I hope you head over there, and I'll see you next time, guys. Bye!